At 7:42 p.m., my phone buzzed with a group message titled, Callaway Family. Dad wrote, "We think it's best if you take a step back for now. Ren needs space." Then, Aunt
Oh, this
Celeste
is
reacted
completely
with a thumbs up.
unacceptable. I warned you about the
Just
risks.
like that, I was
You are
voted out of my
responsible
own
for this mess. How
bloodline.
could you let this
I
happen?
stared at the screen,
Don't you dare
curry
hang up on
spinning in
me.
the
I am
microwave,
not letting this
realizing
go
they'd
until you
just
fix
ended
this
5 years
mess
of my life with
immediately.
perfect grammar and an emoji. The microwave beeped. I didn't move. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, and for maybe 10 seconds I considered writing something soft, something apologetic, something that would make them take it back. Instead, I typed, "Understood. I'll respect that, and step away from the family fund, too." I pressed send. 5 minutes later, the first phone call came in. By midnight, nothing in that family's life was still working. People always called me the steady one, the dependable daughter, the one who had it together. I used to think that was a compliment. Turns out it was just another way to say you'll clean up our mess. 5 years ago, on a night that still smells like wet asphalt and panic, my dad called me from a Walgreens parking lot. It was raining so hard I could hear it through the phone, a hollow drumming against his windshield. His voice cracked in a way I'd never heard before. "Marlo, they won't admit Ren without insurance. She's not going to make it. Please." I was 27, sitting in my tiny studio apartment in a neighborhood where the streetlights flickered more than they stayed on. I was still believing that love meant saying yes. Still believing that family was the place you ran to, not from. In the background, I heard my mother's voice, sharp and insistent. "Tell her it's life or death, Garrett." Something about that phrase, "tell her," stuck in my throat even then. But I shoved it down because my little sister was in crisis. And what kind of person hesitates when someone's dying? I opened my laptop, logged into my savings account, and drained every cent I'd been saving for a down payment on a place with windows that actually opened. $32,000 vanished in a blink. I watched the balance drop to $143.26 and felt something inside me rewire. Ren was admitted the next morning. My parents called it a miracle. No one mentioned my name. That moment changed everything. It taught my family that I was the solution, and it taught me that sacrifice could be invisible if you did it quietly enough. After Ren got out, after the 72-hour hold and the discharge papers and the promises that things would be different, every crisis had my number written on it in permanent ink. 3 months later, Mom called about her insulin, $240 a month. "Just until the insurance gets sorted out," she said. The insurance never got sorted out. Then, Dad's mortgage. "Just $800 to cover the gap this month." The gap never closed. Then Ren's therapy, $180 twice a week. "I need this, Lo. You saw what happened when I didn't have support." I told myself it was fine. I was helping. Family helps. But help turned into habit. And habit turned into expectation, and expectation turned into entitlement so gradual I didn't notice until I was standing in the grocery store putting back the good coffee because I couldn't afford both coffee and my sister's copay. Then, one night over Thai takeout, the kind I used to order before I started budgeting in $5 increments, Dad said, "Maybe we should make it official. Set up a family fund. You're so good with numbers, Marlo." I smiled because it sounded responsible. Safe. Like I was getting control back. What I actually built was a leash. The Callaway Family Fund lived under my name, my account, my routing number, my liability. It paid for everything. Prescriptions, mortgage gaps, car repairs, therapy sessions, even small emergencies like Aunt Celeste's dental crown after she bit into an olive pit at Christmas dinner. Every month, I logged in, checked balances, shifted money from my paycheck into the fund, then watched it drain out again like I was bailing water from a sinking boat. I kept telling myself it was temporary. By year 2, Aunt Celeste had joined the roster. $2,400 for a dental crown because family takes care of family, and you've always been so generous, sweetheart. By year 3, I'd stopped buying anything new for myself. I canceled Netflix, then Spotify, then my gym membership. I ate oatmeal 5 days a week because it was cheap and didn't expire fast. I wore the same 3 work outfits in rotation until the hems frayed and my coworkers started asking if I was okay. I was fine, I'd say, just saving money. What I didn't say, I was saving them. Every time I tried to pull back, another emergency hit. Dad's transmission, Mom's blood work, Rin's career development course that cost $4,500 and resulted in a certificate she never used. It felt like the universe punished me for trying to breathe. My boyfriend, Darian, started noticing. We'd been together 2 years by then, and he was the kind of person who noticed things without making you feel small about them. One night, after I'd turned down a weekend trip because I needed to save money, he said it. "Marlo, you treat your family like clients who never pay their invoices." I laughed. He didn't. Later in the shower, I cried quietly so he wouldn't hear. The water ran cold before I got out. Then came year 5. The year everything broke. Ren sent a message to the family group chat. "Could the fund cover a wellness retreat in Sedona? It's $3,200, but it's for my mental health. I really need this." I waited for someone else to say no, for someone to suggest a local therapist or a weekend camping trip or literally any option that didn't cost more than some people's monthly rent. Instead, Dad replied first. "That's important, sweetheart. Mental health counts too." Mom added a heart emoji. Aunt Celeste chimed in. "Self-care isn't selfish." I sat there staring at my phone, realizing with perfect, cold clarity that they no longer saw the fund as help. It was theirs. My money was their right, and I was the rude one for hesitating. That night, I opened my laptop and stared at the spreadsheet I'd been maintaining for 5 years. The file was named Callaway Family Heart, SLSX, a name I'd chosen because I wanted to believe this was about love. I renamed it Callaway Ledger, SLSX, because that's what it really was. A record of debts that would never be repaid. Still, I kept going. Out of duty, out of habit, out of fear that if I stopped, everything would collapse and it would be my fault. 2 weeks after Rin's retreat request, I was still stalling. I hadn't said yes, I hadn't said no, I just didn't respond. For the first time in 5 years, I let a request sit unanswered. Dad called on a Tuesday afternoon while I was at work. His tone was soft, carefully modulated, almost rehearsed. "Sweetheart, maybe you should take a step back for a while. You've been tense lately. We're worried about you." That phrase, "take a step back," stuck to the back of my throat like smoke. I didn't know it then, but those exact words would show up again in a group message that would end everything. "I'm fine, Dad. Just busy." "Right. Well, we just think some space might be good for everyone." For everyone. Not for me. For them. Things started shifting after that call. The messages came faster but felt heavier, laden with subtext I was only beginning to decode. Then I checked the fund account and saw something that made my stomach drop. Withdrawals I didn't recognize, dates I hadn't approved, charges from stores I'd never heard of, Arizona Wellness Collective, an $800 deposit, gas charges tracking a route from here to Sedona, a patio heater for $450. They'd been using the account like it was a shared checking account, like my approval was a formality, not a requirement. I took a screenshot. My hand didn't shake. The next morning, I called Dad. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Dad, the fund was for emergencies." He chuckled like I was being dramatic. "Mental health is an emergency, Marlo." "Then maybe Rin should talk to a therapist, not a travel agent." The line went cold. Then he sighed. That same disappointed father sigh that folds you back into being 12 years old and wrong about everything. "You've changed, Skylar." I froze. "What did you just call me?" A pause. Too long. "What?" "You called me Skylar." "No, I didn't. I said Marlo. You're stressed. Maybe you should take a step back?" Another pause. "I'm just worried about you." We hung up. My hands were shaking now. I opened my laptop and Googled Skylar Callaway. The first result was a newspaper article from 15 years ago. Woman sues family members after $60,000 fraud scheme. I clicked. The article detailed how Skylar Callaway, then 32, had discovered her family had applied for a business loan using her social security number and forged signature. She'd sued, she'd won, and then she'd disappeared. There was a quote from my father. "Family means sacrifice. She abandoned us when we needed her most. I read that line 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and whispered to the empty room. She didn't abandon you. She escaped. Sati. A few days later, the calendar invite came. Family check-in call, Thursday, 8 p.m. The subject line had a smiley face. I joined out of politeness, still shaken by the Skylar revelation, still trying to piece together what it meant. Within 5 minutes, Ren hijacked the call. I just think Marlo's energy has been really toxic lately. It's not just about the money, it's the attitude. I sat frozen, my face neutral on the screen. Mom chimed in, gentle but cutting. Sweetheart, maybe just listen first. Dad added, we're only saying this because we care. I forced a smile. I've been listening for 5 years. I paid for you all to keep talking. Tonight, I'd like to finish a sentence. Silence. Then Dad said it. The same phrase from that phone call weeks ago. Maybe you should take a step back. Give everyone some space. There it was. The exact script delivered again, but this time rehearsed by all of them. I smiled faintly. Okay, I'll do exactly that. They didn't know what those words meant coming from me. They thought I'd sulk, maybe send flowers later, maybe come crawling back with an apology and a reopened checking account. Instead, I opened my laptop that night and whispered, You wanted space. You're about to have plenty. While the city exhaled outside my window, I sat at my desk and opened the Callaway ledger. 5 years of transactions glowed against the dark screen. Rent, co-pays, prescriptions, car repairs, patio heaters, wellness retreats. I stared at the numbers until they blurred into years. Then I started deleting. Autopay, off. Scheduled transfers, canceled. Utility payments linked to my card, paused. Insurance premium auto-renewals, stopped. Each click felt surgical, like cutting oxygen lines one by one. I downloaded the final statement and saved it to a new folder. Callaway Ledger, final. The name felt right. 5 years of lifelines reduced to clean rows and digital proof. When the last toggle turned gray, the quiet in my apartment changed. It wasn't peaceful yet, more like the silence before an alarm. I poured coffee even though it was nearly midnight, sat back, and whispered, You wanted space. I'm giving you distance. At 3:11 a.m., my phone started buzzing. Once, twice, then continuously, until the light strobed across my ceiling like a distress signal. 12 missed calls, 20, 30, 89 by sunrise. Dad's voicemail came first, his voice tight with panic. The bank flagged everything. What happened? Are you okay? Then Mom, trembling. Sweetheart, this isn't what we meant. I need my prescriptions. Please call. Then Ren, sharp and venomous. You're cruel. You know I needed that payment. You've always been jealous of me. Jealous of what? Their dependence? Their chaos? Their willingness to drain me dry and call it love? I didn't reply. I watched the notifications pile up like snow, and when the phone finally stilled, I exhaled. The silence didn't hurt. It hummed. At 8 a.m., Darian called. His voice was careful, like he was approaching a wild animal. So, space, huh? I laughed for the first time in weeks. It came out rough, unused. Turns out it includes my bank login. He was quiet for a moment. You actually did it. I did. How do you feel? I looked around my apartment. The morning light cut through the blinds in clean, sharp lines. My laptop sat closed on the desk. My phone had finally stopped buzzing an hour ago, the notifications stacked like a digital graveyard. Like I can breathe, I said, for the first time in 5 years. Good. He hesitated. Listen, I know this is probably a weird time, but didn't my ex-Linux move into bank compliance? My pulse quickened. Yeah, why? No reason. Just, if you needed someone to look into anything financial, she'd be the person to call. She takes fraud pretty seriously. I sat up straighter. Darian, yeah? I love you. He laughed, surprised. I love you too. Want me to text you her number? Please. By noon, Dad had texted again. We can fix this. Just turn the automatic payments back on. We'll sit down and talk. Aunt Celeste chimed in. Families need grace, Marlo. This is childish. Grace. They wanted grace. The same people who'd been taking unauthorized withdrawals wanted me to extend grace. I closed the messages and said softly to no one, Grace doesn't pay overdraft fees. That afternoon, the pharmacy called. The voice on the other end was gentle, professional. Ms. Calloway? We're calling about Corinne Calloway's prescription. The card on file was declined. Would you like to update the payment method? No, I said, my voice steady. She'll handle it. A pause. Oh, okay. Is she okay? I smiled at the concern in her voice. The pharmacist didn't know me, didn't know the history, but she could hear something in the silence. She will be, I said. Eventually. But I wasn't just sitting in silence. I was documenting. I pulled up that newspaper article about Skylar Calloway again and read every word. The details were horrifyingly familiar. A family fund, escalating requests, a business loan application with a forged signature. The only difference was the amount. Skylar's family had tried to steal $60,000. Mine was going bigger. I found more. Social media posts from years ago, before accounts were deleted or made private. A Facebook post from Uncle Silas from 2009. Sometimes the only way to save yourself is to leave. No contact is self-care. The comments underneath were revealing. Aunt Celeste, family doesn't give up on family. Uncle Silas's reply, family doesn't forge signatures either, Celeste. The thread ended there. I kept digging, found an old blog post from someone named SC, dated 2011, titled How to Recover After Financial Abuse from Family. The writing style was clinical, detached, but the details were specific enough to recognize. Skylar had documented her escape like a survival guide. One line stood out. They will call you cruel. They will say you've changed. What they mean is, you stopped being useful. I screenshot everything. My phone rang. Unknown number. Ms. Calloway, this is Lennox Quinn from First National Bank, Compliance Department. Darian Ashford said you might need some help? Her voice was crisp, professional, no nonsense. I liked her immediately. I think my family might be committing fraud using my information. Walk me through it. I did. 5 years of the fund, the unauthorized withdrawals, the Skylar connection, the feeling that something bigger was coming. She was quiet while I talked, and I could hear her typing. Okay, she said finally. I pulled your profile. Marlo, when was the last time you checked your credit report? I don't know. A year ago? Maybe longer? More typing, then a long pause. Ms. Calloway, someone has accessed your credit report 47 times in the past 6 weeks. My stomach dropped. 47? Different institutions, different loan applications. Most were denied because of the inquiry volume, but there's one that's still pending. Her voice changed, became more urgent. There's an active business loan application for $85,000 filed 3 days ago. Calloway Family Wellness LLC. Your social security number, your signature. The room tilted. That's not my signature. I know. I'm looking at your signature card from when you opened your account. They don't match. This is textbook forgery. She paused. There's more. The application has 2 co-signers listed. Let me guess. My sister Wren? Yes, and Briar Harlow. I actually laughed. It came out bitter and sharp. Briar, my cousin, the peacemaker. I'm flagging this immediately. Do you have an attorney? Not yet. Get one. Today. And Marlo? If you hadn't closed that fund when you did, this loan would have been approved tomorrow. You'd be $85,000 in debt for a business that doesn't exist. After we hung up, I sat very still. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic. I'd escaped by accident, by spite, by finally saying no. If I'd been a better person, if I'd tried to reconcile, if I'd turned those payments back on, if I'd chosen peace over boundaries, I'd be drowning. I spent the rest of the day building my case. I downloaded 5 years of bank statements and highlighted every transaction in color-coded categories. Prescriptions in blue, mortgage in green, Emergencies in red, personal expenses that had nothing to do with emergencies in yellow. The yellow was everywhere. I pulled my credit report, saw those 47 inquiries like scars. My credit score had dropped 140 points in 6 weeks. Inquiries from banks I'd never heard of, loan applications I'd never submitted, credit cards I'd never requested. I recorded all the voicemails and backed them up to 3 separate clouds. Then I called a lawyer. Patricia Donovan answered on the second ring. Her voice was exactly what I needed. Firm, experienced, unshockable. "Ms. Calloway, what can I do for you?" "My family has been committing identity theft and fraud using my information. I have documentation. I want protection." "How long has this been going on?" "The fund? 5 years. The fraud? At least 6 weeks that I know of." "And you want to prosecute?" I thought about that. About Wren in a courtroom. About Mom crying on the witness stand. About Dad in handcuffs. "No," I said. "I want protection and peace. I want them to never be able to do this again, to me or anyone else. But I don't want to send them to prison." "Then we build a wall," Patricia said. "Every account, every shared authorization, every piece of documentation that ties you to them legally or financially gets severed. We file a police report for documentation purposes, but we don't push for prosecution unless they violate the protection order. We notify credit bureaus, banks, the IRS. We make it impossible for them to use you." "How long will that take?" "If you have your documentation ready, we can start today. Most of it will be in place by end of week." "Let's do it." "One more thing, Ms. Calloway. Are you prepared for them to be very, very angry?" I smiled. "They're already angry. At least this way, they can't access my bank account while they're yelling." Sunday evening, my phone lit up with a calendar invite. Family Zoom, casual check-in. The emoji felt like a threat. I accepted the invite. Then I spent 3 hours preparing. I pulled up the Callaway Ledger spreadsheet and created a presentation, added tabs, charts, timelines, built a second spreadsheet labeled "What If," showing what I could have saved if I'd kept my money. A house down payment, a retirement fund, a life. I pulled up the loan application documents Lennox had sent me, the forged signature, the co-signer list with Breyer's name highlighted. I pulled up that old newspaper article about Skylar, and I got dressed. Black sweater, hair tied back, the same outfit I'd worn 5 years ago when I created the fund. There was symmetry in that. A closing of the circle. At 6:59 p.m., I clicked "Join Meeting." Faces bloomed across the screen. Dad pacing behind Mom, jaw set, already on edge. Mom with her hands clasped so tightly the knuckles were white. Wren's eyes red-rimmed, though I doubted from crying. Aunt Celeste centered in her frame, pearls gleaming, the self-appointed judge of this family court. And Breyer, smiling too brightly, the designated peacemaker. "Hi, everyone," Breyer chirped. "Let's all just keep this civil, okay?" "Of course," I said pleasantly. I'd hate to interrupt anyone's civility. Dad leaned into frame. "Marlo, you didn't have to shut everything down. You could have just talked to us." I smiled, calm, practiced. "I didn't shut it down, Dad. I closed it. It was in my name, my routing number, my liability." Mom's voice trembled. "That money was keeping us alive." "No," I said softly. "I was. There's a difference." Aunt Celeste sighed dramatically. "Families go through rough patches, dear. You don't just turn off love." I met her eyes through the screen. "You're right, Aunt Celeste. I turned off autopay." For a second, no one breathed. Wren slammed forward, her face filling her camera. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? Watching us struggle. You always made everything about control." I tilted my head. "I made it about accountability. Since we're all here, why don't we talk about that?" I clicked Share Screen. The Callaway Ledger filled every screen. 5 years of color-coded data, clean rows, brutal honesty. At the top in bold black letters, Callaway Ledger, final accounting. Mom gasped. "What is this?" 5 years, I said evenly. "Every bill, every copay, every emergency you called love." I scrolled down. The numbers told their own story. Garrett Calloway, $52,000 mortgage gaps, car repairs, insurance premiums, temporary loans never repaid. Corinne Calloway, $48,000. Insulin, medical tests, prescription medications, specialist appointments. Ren Calloway, $61,500 hospital admission, therapy sessions, career development courses, wellness retreats, apartment deposits, car payments. Celeste Harlow, $18,000, dental work, home repairs, emergency loans. Miscellaneous, $8,000, family dinners, holiday gifts, utilities, total, $187,500. Briar whispered, "Oh my God." Aunt Celeste's smile tightened. "Someone loves keeping receipts." I looked straight at her. "Someone had to. Otherwise, you'd still call me dramatic instead of accurate." Mom covered her mouth with shaking hands. "You tracked all of this?" "No one else was keeping score," I said, and I was tired of gaslighting myself. Dad's face went pale. "You didn't have to humiliate us like this." "I didn't," I said quietly. "I protected us. Until you made it clear, I was the only one who had to." The silence grew thick enough to choke on. I clicked to the next tab. The second spreadsheet appeared. Cleaner, simpler, more devastating. What if the cost of family? It showed what I could have saved if I'd kept my money, what I could have built, the life I could have had. Down payment on a modest home, $40,000 emergency fund, 6 months expenses, $18,000 retirement account contributions, $50,000 student loan payoff, $32,000 personal savings, $47,500 total, $187,500. "This," I said, my voice steady, "is what I gave up. Not just money, a future." Mom's eyes were wet. Ren stared at the screen, her face unreadable. Then I clicked again. The PDF filled the screen. Business loan application, pending approval. Callaway Family Wellness, LLC. Amount, $85,000. Applicant, Marlo Callaway. SSN. Signature. Obviously forged. Co-signers, Ren Callaway, Briar Harlow. The oxygen left the room. Garrett stepped back from his camera. Corinne covered her mouth. Ren froze completely. "This," I said, tapping the screen, "was submitted 3 days after you asked me to take a step back. If I hadn't closed the fund, the bank would have released $85,000 straight into an account for a business that doesn't exist. Under my name. With my forged signature." Aunt Celeste swallowed hard. That can't be right." "Oh, it's right. Lennox Quinn from First National Bank confirmed it. I called her this morning." Ren found her voice. "You went to the bank?" "Of course. Fraud tends to get their attention." And Dad tried to recover. "Marlo, we were just trying to find a way to help Ren start her business." "No," I interrupted, my voice sharp for the first time. "You were trying to steal from me. Again." I let that word hang. Again. Then I pulled up one more document. The newspaper article from 15 years ago filled the screen. "Woman sues family after $60K fraud scheme." There was a photo. A woman who looked tired and betrayed and free. Skylar Calloway. "Some of you remember Skylar," I said. "Dad's sister." I read the headline slowly, letting each word land. Garrett's face went from pale to gray. "Dad, you called me Skylar 2 weeks ago. Not a slip of the tongue, a pattern." I scrolled to the quote from the article, his quote. "Family means sacrifice. She abandoned us when we needed her most." "You've done this before," I said. My voice was calm, almost clinical. "She escaped. Uncle Silas escaped. Now I'm escaping." Corinne's composure finally cracked. "Marlo, I didn't know about Skylar until after." "After what?" I asked. "After he drained her? After he forged her signature? After she had to sue her own family just to survive?" Garrett's voice was low, dangerous. "Everyone needs to calm down." "No," I said. Everyone needs to take responsibility. I turned my attention to Briar, whose face had gone chalk white. Briar, you co-signed that loan application. You want to explain why the peacemaker helped commit fraud? Her voice came out small, broken. They said you approved it, that you were just being difficult about the paperwork, that it would help Rin finally get stable. I thought I was helping. Celeste cut in sharply. Briar, don't say anything else. Too late, I said. Lennox already flagged it with federal investigators. Bank fraud crosses state lines. That makes it a federal crime. The room erupted. Dad started yelling about overreaction. Rin started crying, real tears this time. Celeste tried to regain control of the narrative. Briar just sat frozen, realizing what she'd been used for. But Mom just stared at me. You really called the bank, she said quietly. I called the bank. I called a lawyer. I filed a police report. I notified the credit bureaus and the IRS. I paused. I did everything Skylar should have been able to do without having to sue you. You're going to prosecute us? Rin's voice was barely a whisper. No, I said. I'm going to protect myself. There's a difference. I lifted a stack of papers into frame. Official documents. Legal letterhead. Every joint account has been closed. Every shared card, canceled. Every utility payment, separated. Every legal connection between my finances and yours has been severed. Patricia Donovan, my attorney, has already filed everything we need. I looked at each face on the screen, one by one. You told me to step back. I did. You wanted space. I'm giving you all the space in the world. Dad's jaw clenched. So what? You want us to beg? No. I want you to learn how to live without draining me. Corinne spoke up, her voice cracking. Marlo, I'm sorry. I should have stopped this years ago. I should have protected you. She looked at Garrett. I should have stopped him from doing to you what he did to Skylar. Corinne! Garrett's voice was a warning. No, Garrett. Mom's voice was stronger now. She's right. We did this to Skylar. We swore we wouldn't do it again, and we did it anyway. I took a breath. Slow, calm, final. Love without boundaries becomes debt, I said. I just paid mine in full. Aunt Celeste tried one more time. You're being so dramatic. And you're $18,000 in debt to me for a dental crown you never thanked me for. We're done here. I looked at the camera one last time. This is the last conversation we'll have about my money, because it's not yours. It never was. I clicked Leave Meeting. The screen went black. My reflection stared back, not angry, not crying, not broken, free. I sat in the silence of my apartment, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic, the absence of crisis. It sounded like applause. For 2 days after that Zoom call, my apartment felt like the eye of a storm. The phone barely stopped buzzing. Dad's messages swung from fury to desperation. You're tearing this family apart. Became, please fix this before we lose the house. Became, how can you be so cruel? Mom's voicemails trembled with guilt. Sweetheart, you've gone too far. We're your family. Please. Rin's text came in all caps. You ruined us. I hope you're happy. I hope it was worth it. I didn't answer any of them. I just let the notifications pile up like snow, visible, mounting, but unable to touch me. By day 3, something shifted. The buzzing slowed, then stopped. The silence was thick and strange, but it didn't hurt. It hummed with possibility. I went through every account one final time, triple-checking that all the severing was complete. My name stood alone on everything. No joint authorizations, no shared cards, no hidden logins. For the first time in 5 years, my finances looked exactly like my life, mine alone. Then the email came from First National Bank. Subject, Fraud Alert, Application Status Update. Dear Ms. Calloway, the business loan application filed under your name and SSN application number 87452B has been frozen pending federal investigation. All funds have been blocked. Your account has been flagged for protection. No further applications can be submitted using your information without in-person verification and biometric confirmation. Our compliance department has forwarded this case to the appropriate authorities. You will not be liable for any fraudulent activity. Lennox Quinn, Senior Compliance Officer. I read it 3 times. If I'd hesitated even one more day, if I'd chosen peace over boundaries, if I'd turned those payments back on, if I'd believed them when they said I was being cruel, I'd be $85,000 in debt for a business that didn't exist. I'd escaped by accident, by spite, by finally choosing myself. That evening, Darian came over with Thai food, the good kind, from the place we used to go before I'd started budgeting in $5 increments. He didn't ask questions, didn't push, just unpacked the containers and sat beside me on my worn couch. "You doing okay?" he asked quietly. "I think so." I picked at my pad thai. "Is it weird that I don't feel guilty?" "No, it's healthy." He bumped my shoulder with his. "I'm proud of you." That word, proud, broke something open inside me. My eyes burned, my throat closed, because it was the first time I'd ever heard it without strings attached, without expectations, without a footnote that said, "But you could do more." "Say that again," I whispered. He pulled me close. "I'm proud of you, Marlo. You did the hard thing, the right thing, and you did it alone because they never gave you any other choice." I cried then, not from sadness, but from relief. Someone finally understood. Patricia Donovan called the next morning. "Everything's filed and active," she said. "No contact order is in place. They cannot legally contact you regarding money, debts, or financial obligations. If they do, it's a violation and we can pursue harassment charges." "What about the fraud case?" "The bank's handling it. Federal investigators will likely want to interview you, but you're the victim here, not the suspect. The loan application was flagged as suspicious the moment Lennox ran the signature comparison. Your family, specifically your father and sister, are now under investigation." My stomach twisted despite everything. What happens to them? Depends on how cooperative they are. First-time offenses, no prior record except for that incident with Skylar. They'll likely get probation, fines, mandatory restitution. But Marlo? Her voice softened. "That's not your responsibility. You didn't do this to them. They did it to themselves." "I know," I said, but knowing and feeling were different countries. "One more thing. I pulled property records. Your father refinanced the house 6 months ago. Took out a home equity line of credit for $60,000. Do you know what that money was for?" My blood went cold. "No." "Neither does the bank. It wasn't used for home repairs. Wasn't used to pay down other debts. It just disappeared. Into living expenses, probably. Which means they've been supplementing their lifestyle with borrowed money while still taking yours." I sat down heavily. "They weren't in crisis. They were just spending." Bingo. The fund didn't save them. It enabled them. And when enablement runs out, addicts don't get sober. They find a new source. That loan application was them trying to replace you. After we hung up, I sat very still, processing. The emergencies had been real at first. Mom's insulin, Rin's hospital stay. But somewhere along the way, crisis had become lifestyle. My money hadn't kept them afloat. It had kept them from learning how to swim. A week passed, then 2. The silence held. I started doing small things I hadn't done in years. Bought the good coffee. Ordered takeout without calculating the cost per meal. Went to Target and bought new sheets, soft ones, expensive ones, the kind that felt like luxury. I stood in my bedroom, smoothing the new duvet cover, and realized I was smiling. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Marlo Calloway?" "Yes?" "This is Silas Calloway, your uncle." I sat down on my new sheets. "Uncle Silas." "I heard what happened." His voice was gravelly but kind, weathered by years and distance. "Your mom called me. First time in 15 years. She was crying, saying you'd abandoned the family. I told her congratulations, you'd finally learned." I laughed, surprised. "You're not calling to guilt trip me?" "Hell no. I'm calling to say welcome to the club. The I Survived Garrett Calloway Club. Membership is small, but we're very supportive. How did you? I trailed off. How did I get out? He sighed. Similar story. Different decade. He got me for $43,000 in the late 90s. Kept saying it was temporary, that the family business would take off, that he'd pay me back. Then I found out he'd been using my credit cards, maxed them out, destroyed my credit. What did you do? Moved to Montana, changed my number, went no contact. Your grandmother, his mother, called me a coward, said I was selfish. But Marlo, I had to choose between saving them and saving myself. And they weren't drowning. They were standing in shallow water, screaming for help so they wouldn't have to walk to shore. I closed my eyes. That's exactly what it felt like. You're not the first, kiddo. Just the first who shut the faucet off before you drowned. Skylar had to sue. I had to disappear. You did it cleaner than either of us. Did you ever forgive them? He was quiet for a long moment. I forgave myself for leaving. That's what mattered. They chose this. Every time they called you instead of getting real jobs, real budgets, real help, they chose this. Your only choice was how long you'd let it continue. Do you? I hesitated. Do you think I'm cruel? No. I think you're the first person in 3 generations to draw a boundary that stuck. That doesn't make you cruel. That makes you healthy. We talked for an hour. He told me about his life in Montana, the quiet of it, the peace, the way he'd rebuilt from nothing. He gave me advice about job references, about explaining gaps in savings, about how to answer when people asked about family. If you ever need anything, he said before hanging up, and I mean anything, a reference, a place to stay, someone to talk to who gets it, you call me. Family should mean support, not debt. After we hung up, I cried for a long time, not from sadness, but from relief. Someone had survived this before me. Someone had made it to the other side. I could too. 1 year later, my life looked different. Not dramatically. No sudden windfall, no revenge success story, no viral moment of vindication. Just quiet growth, the kind that happens when you stop bleeding and start healing. I rented a new apartment in a better neighborhood. 1 bedroom, creaky wooden floors that sang when I walked barefoot, windows that actually opened. The rent was higher than my old place, but I could afford it now, because I wasn't supporting 4 other households. In 12 months, I'd saved $18,400, the same amount I used to give away annually. My emergency fund hit $5,000. I started a retirement account. My credit score was climbing back up, point by point, as the fraudulent inquiries aged off my report. Darian and I moved in together, not out of necessity, but because we wanted to, because I could finally plan a future that belonged to me. I cooked dinner most nights. Real meals, not oatmeal, not convenience store sandwiches. We tried new recipes, laughed over kitchen disasters, split the grocery bill because we were partners, not because I was someone's personal bank. When I checked my banking app now, there were no surprise withdrawals, no panic, just calm numbers that made sense. Christmas Eve came with snow and silence. My inbox pinged. 1 new message. From Corinne Calloway. Subject: no pressure, just truth. I stared at it for a long moment before opening. Marlo, I'm not expecting a response. I'm not even sure I deserve the chance to write this, but my therapist says I need to take accountability, and you deserve to hear it. I filed for divorce 3 months ago. Garrett moved out last week. It should have happened years ago, maybe decades ago, if I'm honest. I kept telling myself I was protecting the family, keeping us together, but I was really just protecting myself from having to face what he was. A user, a manipulator, someone who saw people as resources. I went through our finances after you cut us off, really went through them. He'd been hiding accounts, taking out loans in both our names, spending money we didn't have on things we didn't need. The house is going into foreclosure. We're losing it. And you know what? I'm relieved. I'm living with my sister now, working part-time at a library, getting therapy twice a week, learning how to budget, learning how to be a person who doesn't rely on everyone else to save her. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know. You were right. About all of it. I should have protected you. I should have protected Skylar before you. I should have left him the first time I saw what he was doing. I didn't, and I will carry that guilt for the rest of my life. But I'm trying to be better, not for you. You don't owe me that chance. For me. I hope you're okay. I hope you're happy. I hope your life is everything we never let it be. With love and regret, Mom. I read it 3 times. Then I saved it to a folder labeled Maybe Someday and closed my laptop. I wasn't ready to respond. Might never be. But the fact that she'd finally seen it, finally admitted it, felt like something. Not closure exactly. More like acknowledgement. The wound was still there, but it wasn't bleeding anymore. I opened my phone and scrolled back through my messages. Found that old group chat. Calloway family. The last message was still mine from 372 days ago. Understood? I'll respect that. And step away from the family fun, too. Below it, Aunt Celeste's thumbs up emoji, frozen in time like a digital epitaph. No one had deleted the chat. No one had messaged since. It just sat there, a monument to what used to be. I could delete it, archive it, block everyone. But I left it, because sometimes you need proof that you survived. New Year's Eve arrived with city lights and champagne. Darian and I stood on our apartment balcony, small and drafty, but ours, watching fireworks bloom over the skyline. The air was cold enough to see our breath. "You okay?" he asked, wrapping an arm around me. "Yeah." I leaned into him. "I really am." "Any regrets?" I thought about it. Really thought. About the money, the years, the family dinners I'd never attend again, the relationships that had ended the moment I'd stopped being useful. "No," I said. "No regrets." Because the truth was simple. I'd spent 5 years funding their peace. This year, I'd bought mine. On January 1st, I opened my laptop and looked at the Callaway ledger one last time. All those rows of numbers, 5 years of proof. I'd kept it as evidence, as protection, as a reminder. Now I saved it to an external drive and deleted it from my computer. Not because I was forgetting, because I didn't need to look at it anymore. The past was documented, stored, preserved. But it wasn't my present. I opened a new spreadsheet, named it simply My Life, started filling in numbers that belonged only to me. Rent, groceries, savings goals, vacation fund, retirement contributions. Every cell was mine. Every dollar had my name on it, not as a liability, but as a choice. 6 months after that, I got a text from an unknown number. "Hi, Marlo, it's Briar. I know I have no right to contact you. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I was stupid and desperate, and I let Uncle Garrett manipulate me. I testified against him when the bank pressed charges. He got probation and a fraud charge on his record. I got community service. I deserved worse. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you're okay." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, "Thank you for saying that. I hope you learned from it." I didn't add her to my contacts, didn't invite conversation, but I didn't block her either. Some bridges you burn, others you just stop maintaining. 2 years after the Zoom call, I was having coffee with a new friend, someone I'd met through work who didn't know my history, didn't know about the fund, didn't know about the family I'd left behind. She was talking about her own family drama, and something she said made me speak up. "Sometimes the only way to love people is from a distance," I said. "Sometimes boundaries aren't walls, they're foundations. You can't build anything on ground that keeps collapsing under you." She looked at me, really looked, and said, "That sounds like something you learned the hard way." I smiled. The hardest way, but I learned it. 3 years later, I bought a house. Small, 2 bedrooms. A backyard the size of a postage stamp, but mine. Entirely, legally, financially, mine. The down payment came from my savings. My savings. Money I'd earned and kept and grown. On moving day, as I stood in the empty living room with sunlight streaming through windows I'd chosen, I thought about that night 3 years ago. The curry in the microwave, the group message. The moment everything ended, I'd thought I was losing my family. Turned out I was finding myself. I never heard from Dad again. No apology, no acknowledgement, no change. According to Uncle Silas, he moved in with Wren after the foreclosure. They're still out there somewhere, probably building the same patterns with new people. I hope they learn. But that's not my job anymore. Last month, I framed something and hung it in my home office. Not the Callaway Ledger, not the newspaper article about Skylar, not any evidence of what happened. Just a simple quote I'd written on cardstock in my own handwriting. Boundaries aren't revenge. They're instructions for how to love me correctly, or not at all. Darian asked me once why I kept it where I could see it every day. Because I spent 27 years not knowing that was an option, I said. I don't ever want to forget again. Now when I open my banking app, I see numbers that make sense. Money that's mine. A future I'm building one choice at a time. No surprise withdrawals. No emergencies that aren't mine. No guilt for choosing myself. Just peace. The kind you earn by learning when to hold on and when to let go. For 5 years, I financed their peace. Now I live in mine. If you've ever had to draw that line, if you've ever had to choose between saving them and saving yourself, you're not alone, and you're not cruel. You're just finally beautifully free.